Hey, it's Rebecca, Reb. So, this video is going to be quite a bit different than my normal ones. Not quite as humorous and goofy and silly, and not plant related. I want to talk about something that is extremely important to me and something that affected my life more than absolutely anything else. I'm going to do it without any cuts and edits or anything, so it might be a little choppy and scattered, but I'm going to try to make it as succinct as possible. But the reason I'm doing it is because I want to make the point that we all need to be our biggest advocates for ourselves when it comes to healthcare or anything important to us that is something that has an impact on our life. Especially as women, we tend not to do that, and it's hard, and we tend to be non-confrontational. That's something that I still struggle with every day. But when it comes to our health and our family members, we have to. And when a tragedy happened in my life, I knew that I needed to do something with the message to spread that word to other women, so that maybe if some other woman was in that situation, they would learn that they, no matter what, need to fight for themselves. So hopefully it wouldn't happen to maybe that one person who heard me. So, on December 21st, 2001, I gave birth to beautiful twin girls, Rainey and Grace. They were premature. I had them at 5.5 months, and they lived for about an hour, and then I passed away in my arms. And they are still very much a part of our lives. I talk about them because I'm a mom, and who doesn't love to talk about their children? I have to. They are as much a part of our family as my daughters that are here with me every day. My daughter Libby has seen them on a couple of occasions when she was very little, and she told me what they looked like. She, in a car accident that we had when Libby was about 5 and Amelia was about 3, it was miraculous. Glass had exploded from the car from every window and was everywhere in the car, shards of glass. But there was not a single shard of glass in either of their car seats or anywhere on them. And after Libby calmed down from the accident, she said, Mommy, Rainey and Grace blocked the glass from getting on us. Yep. And another time she said that she saw Rainey and Grace, and they have beautiful long brown hair, and she told me what they looked like. So yeah, and I believe her. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you the story of what happened leading up to their birth and their passing, and how it probably should have gone and could have gone differently had I fought for myself. And nothing can be changed, but maybe someone hearing this could learn from it. So hopefully that happens. So 3 days before they were born, I started having, well, I should preface it by saying I was enormous. My belly looked like I was past due. It was huge. I know I had twins, but it was ridiculous. It was huge. I was 5.5 months pregnant. Strangers would be like, "Oh, honey, when were you due?" And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not due until, the date." And I just thought, I had never been pregnant before, and here I was pregnant with twins. I thought, oh, maybe that's just how it's supposed to be. And so I was insanely uncomfortable, and it was getting really, really bad. 3 days before they were born, I was having extraordinary amount of pain. It got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore, and I just knew something wasn't right. I told my husband at the time I had to go to the hospital. I had to. Something was not right. I was in agony. And so he said, okay, let's go. We went to the ER, and they took me back and they checked me out. They put on the monitor that they strap across your belly, and they said, oh, you're not having any contractions. You're totally normal. They monitored me just for a little while. And I said, God, it hurts so bad. And they said, well, you're pregnant with twins. It's going to be uncomfortable. And they said, everything looks fine. So just go on home. And so I did. I had never been pregnant. I certainly hadn't been pregnant with twins. So I felt kind of stupid, but I was also really scared because I knew my body and it hurt a lot, and it hadn't felt like this before, and I didn't feel like my belly had any more room to grow. But I went home. My husband was a little annoyed with me, and I went home and I tried to rest, but I couldn't. I was getting more and more and more uncomfortable. I made it, I don't know, another 12 hours or so, and the pain was getting worse and worse and worse. Finally, I said, I'm sorry, you have to take me back. And he's like, they said you were fine. It's fine. But I insisted we go back. I said, something is wrong. It is wrong. It is not okay. And we went back. Same thing. They put me back on the monitors and said, all right, we'll look again. Put me back on the monitor. I am in agony. Again, they said, no, the belly band kind of monitor that they put around your belly with the little circular thing that's on the front of your belly that's supposed to tell if you're having contractions. They said, you're not showing any contractions. And they were getting a little rude at this point. I mean, I had just been there. And they said, Rebecca, you have twins. You're gonna be uncomfortable. And now I felt really stupid, and my husband at the time had come home from work to take me in, and he was really annoyed at this point because they were telling me that I was just being a baby, literally that I was just being a whining pregnant lady with twins, and that I was just uncomfortable. So they just all they had done was monitor my vitals and do the band around my belly with the monitor for the contractions. That's all they had done. Monitored me for a couple hours and sent me home again. And I kept saying, it just doesn't feel right. I hurt so bad. This is more than just discomfort. But no, they sent me home, and my normal doctor wasn't there. He was off. No, this was right before Christmas, so he was gone on vacation or whatever. So I went home, and I tried for as long as I could to just deal with it, and thinking I'm crazy, but also thinking this is not okay. How am I going to make it for another 3 months? This is crazy. This is not okay. I couldn't take anything. I was pregnant with twins. And I went home that night, went to bed. He went to bed. I stayed awake and moaned and rocked and got on my hands and knees. And delirious, thinking, how am I going to do this? He was now annoyed with me, mad annoyed. And then he went off to work the next day. I made it through the night. Then I believe we went back one more time, and now he was just downright mad. They did the same thing. I mean, we went back, they were just nasty to me. Because again, by this time, he was livid that he took me back again, for no reason. The same thing happened. There were no contractions on the monitor. I was getting delirious and terrified, delirious from pain, lack of sleep, scared. No one was believing me. The nurses and doctors were mean to me at this point. They weren't even trying to pacify me or comfort me or anything. There were no contractions showing up on the monitor. My husband was just downright angry. Now, to his credit, he was exhausted. He was getting, he had to come home from work the day before to take me to the hospital. So I'm sure the first time he was scared. The second time he was a little annoyed. The third time was just, he thought I was being a baby and ridiculous, a hypochondriac. So went home again, and the next night, when we're on day 3, I had been, just soaking in the bathtub. I had been moaning. I had been rocking. He went off to work. Now this is December 21st. He went off to work and just angry. I was on my hands and knees for hours, screaming, moaning, crying, begging God for help. And I knew there was no way this was normal. It was out of hand. I knew this is not normal aches and pains because you're pregnant with twins. But I was terrified to call and ask him to come home from work and take me to the hospital. I mean, I knew how it was going to go. I knew how it was going to go if I went to the hospital, how I was going to be treated. But I also knew it's not okay. It's not normal. So finally I did, because I was desperate, and I knew with absolute certainty it was not right. So I did. I called. He said, fine, I will come in a little while and I will take you to the hospital. And he did eventually, and he was so angry. And I walked in and the same thing happened. They put me on the damn monitor. And finally I said, no, you need to do something else. You need to do something else. This is not normal. This is not an ache or pain from being pregnant with twins. So finally they were going to send me home. And I said, no, you cannot send me home. You have to do something else. You have to check. Something isn't right. So they said, okay, fine, we'll do an ultrasound. So they brought in a little portable ultrasound, and they looked. And the lady goes to me, the ultrasound tech goes, you're not even pregnant with twins. And I said, yes, I am. And finally, my husband goes, finally he gets a little click, and he actually finally sounded interested and concerned. And he goes, what do you mean? Yes, she is. I said, we have seen both twins on several ultrasounds already. No, she goes, no, you've probably seen shadows. They've just been wrong. And I said, no, we've got plenty of x-rays or ultrasounds with both twins showing. I've felt both of the twins moving all along. I can tell you both twins' personalities, because the twin up here is extremely mobile. The twin down here is much more calm. This one kicks me harder. This one isn't this one's more gentle. This one is, whatever. And she's like, no, the one, you're probably feeling gas in one spot, and you're probably feeling your baby over here. I said, no, there are twins. She's saying, no, look, there's not. Now at this point, finally, my husband was getting angry with her. And she's like, fine, I'll ask a doctor. So the doctor came in and looked, and he goes, oh, well, you have a lot of amniotic fluid. A lot of amniotic fluid. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, well, there's way too much in here. Which explained why my belly was so huge and why it grew so fast. So it was polyhydramniosis. Polyhydramniosis was the condition that I had. And so he said, it's possible that we just can't see one of them. So before we send you home, let's just do a physical exam. So up until this point, all they had done in 3 days of me in 4 times, they hadn't done an ultrasound, they hadn't done a manual exam, nothing. So they made me walk down the hall to an exam room, and they got me on the table. Well, I got on the table, and they looked, and before he even had to do anything, he could see that one of my twins, Rainey, was crowning. And the reason they couldn't see her on the ultrasound was because she had been fully in the birth canal. So they couldn't see her on ultrasound. And as soon as they went to do a physical exam, my water broke. And he's like, oh, well, that explains why we couldn't see her. She's right here in the birth canal. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, you're going to have your babies right now. And I'm like, well, it's too early. And he's like, yeah, it is. And I'm like, well, what do we do? And he said, there's nothing we can do. We need to go deliver them. So we need to move to a delivery room. And he made me walk. So I had to get off the table and walk with amniotic fluid running down my legs to a delivery room down the hall. So I then had to proceed to deliver my twins. And now everything, the tone, of course, changed immediately. But I was in shock. My husband at the time, he didn't know how to deal. I don't think he didn't know what to say or do. Definitely, he just turned off. But the doctor was just cold. I think he was still in his annoyed state. Maybe he was embarrassed that he hadn't checked on anything sooner. That something was actually wrong 3 days before. And all of the other times leading up, I don't know. But I don't know how long Rainey had been in the birth canal, but I had been in labor for 3 days, and he never bothered to check on anything. And the reason that none of my contractions were showing up on that stupid monitor was because I had so much amniotic fluid that it was absorbing the contractions. So that stupid little monitor just wraps around your belly on an elastic band, wasn't picking them up. Had they done any other test and not just said I was being a hysterical woman, they would have known that I was in labor and could have done something, but they didn't. So it doesn't end there. I gave birth to the girls, and they were both alive. And now Rainey was bruised up because she had been in my birth canal for I don't know how long, but she was banged up. Grace, she was happy as a clam because she had had a whole huge swimming pool to swim around in with all that fluid and had had the space to herself for a while. So she was in great shape. She was bigger than Rainey. They came out and they were both breathing on their own. And of course, right away they asked me if I wanted to hold them, and I was in shock from this whole experience. And at first I said no, and the delivery nurses and aftercare, they were wonderful. And they said, well, you're definitely going to want to, so please let us know as soon as you want to. And I did very soon after, thank God. But so they took them, and I said, well, are you going to save them? And the doctor said, no, they're too early. They won't survive. They did nothing. Both of them were breathing on their own. And they lived for a differing amount of time, but up to an hour breathing on their own. And they did nothing to try to save them. I know now that they could have lived. At very least, Grace could have lived. Rainey may not have lived. Likely would not have lived. Grace most likely would have lived, and probably been just fine without problems. She lived quite a while breathing on her own, and they did nothing for her. I didn't know all of it and how likely that would have been until much later. Someone I care deeply about is a respiratory therapist, and she worked in NICU, and she looked into everything. So anyway, I got them back and held them, and they both passed away in my arms. So thank God for that. And I have wonderful things of theirs. I have them all together. Some amazing volunteers make gowns and things, blankets and things, and donate them to the hospital for situations exactly like mine for when people lose babies. So they have things to still have, tangible things to still have, and not just memories. So they had their photos, hospital photos taken and everything in these gowns that were made, handmade. And then the nurses made casts of their feet. So I have those, and I have their hospital bracelets and everything. So you can see they're little tiny casts of their feet. And they're so tiny. And their hospital bracelets. And those beautiful little gowns that people made for them. Aren't they pretty? But their feet, look at their feet. Grace's are the bigger ones, Rainey's are the smaller ones. So, whenever there's a tornado, their stuff goes downstairs in the basement with us. So, the reason I share this whole story with you is to remind you that you need to fight for your own self when you know something isn't right. If someone is poo-pooing you, or saying you're being a crazy woman, or it's all in your head, or just not listening to you, fight for yourself. I should have fought harder for myself when the doctors and nurses were being, let's face it, they were being jackasses, we'll just say. They discounted everything I said. They poo-pooed everything I said. And in the end, it cost my daughters their lives. Nothing's gonna bring them back. I didn't sue the hospital. I didn't write letters. I didn't file complaints, because nothing was gonna bring them back. But I can tell you to not let it happen just because you're scared to sound crazy. These girls, they are beautiful. They're wonderful, and they deserved a nice, long, happy life. And I deserved to hold them longer than I got to. So I just wanted to share their story in memory and honor of them, and in hopes that you will fight for your own health care and your own rights, your own sanity, and your own family. So their birthday is Saturday. It's December 21st. I will go over and visit them at the cemetery, and we'll have a birthday cake and sing happy birthday. And I hope you have a wonderful day.